Hello, my name is David MacTaggart, and I'm a master's student under Dr. Bill Billigatu in the Department of Plant Sciences at the University of Saskatchewan. And today it's my pleasure to talk to you a little bit about stockpile grazing. So this is the practice of using annual or perennial forages, and you come through early during the growing season and harvest them either for hay or for pasture, and then you allow it to stockpile. So that is grow until the growing season is complete, and then you come through and graze it a second time, either in the late fall or early winter when you're talking about Western Canada. So why would producers want to adopt this practice on their farms and ranches? Well, that's a good question. So one of the main reasons is cost savings. Winter feed are one of the most expensive costs for cow-calf operations in Western Canada. And stockpile grazing is one of the practices that we can use to reduce that cost. And this mainly comes from less time you spend with your labor, making hay or your other winter feed sources, in addition to the fuel and the fertilizer that you need to use when making that feed and maintaining those stands. And another factor is improved use efficiency of your manure and your urine, because the livestock are depositing it directly on the field instead of having to deposit it in a dry lot feeding system and then spreading it back out onto your fields. And one factor then that I always like to talk about a little bit is also the environmental benefits of stockpile grazing. As I mentioned previously, we're using less fuel and less fertilizer in this system, and that accounts for lower greenhouse gas emissions as well. So what are some factors to consider if you're looking at adopting stockpile grazing on your farm? Well, the first is, what forage species do you want to graze? And I'll touch on the perennials here. If you are in the dark brown soil zone or north, so where you get more precipitation on the Canadian prairies, things like Sisser milkvetch and meadow brome grass are good species for this purpose because they have relatively high and stable yield in those long-term pastures, so you will have less need to reseed over time. And on top of that, they do a good job of maintaining their nutritional value late into the growing season. Now, if we're moving into the drier areas of the prairies, we might look at actually phasing out legumes entirely to help improve that drought tolerance. And native grasses do an especially good job in this scenario because they maintain their nutritional value late into that growing season, even if you have to use the entire season to stockpile instead of getting that spring harvest. So here at the U of S, in our forage breeding program, we're trying to advance options for stockpile grazing for ranchers and farmers in Western Canada by breeding meadow brome grass and Sisser milkvetch to be seeded together for that stockpile grazing system. And right now we're standing in one of our research trials where we're looking at what's the best way to seed these two species, whether it's in alternate rows or mixed rows, and then at what ratio we put them in at. And this has been a great project so far. We're also testing out what drone imaging can do for forage breeding and forage research.